I'm Gary Bell. I'm the History Room librarian here at the Placentia Library District. This is the first in a series of videos on the history of our community. Placentia has a rich and varied history, and today we're going to begin by telling you a bit about it. Sodden and battered, the Southland yesterday emerged from a near-record deluge and counted 67 known dead with scores missing. Receding rivers, which rampaged down upon the lowlands Wednesday, began giving up their victims yesterday, and rescuers feared that the total death list might near the 100 mark. Authorities, hampered by disrupted communications, progressed slowly in the search for bodies and check of property damage, believed to be tremendous. 47 identified bodies had been recovered at a late hour last night, and 20 others were unidentified. There are many Placentia stories in this historic local catastrophe, and Eddie Castro's is one of them. As a 10-year-old boy, Eddie experienced the flood of 1938. Here is his first-hand account.
My name is Eddie Castro. I was born in the La Jolla colony in South Placentia in 1928. I am a survivor of the 1938 flood, and I am going to talk about the experiences as a 10-year-old. Here it is, 1938, and it had been raining since February. There has been lots of rain in the foothills east of the La Jolla area. But on this particular day in March 3rd, of 1938, the water was coming down the creek, which crisscrosses the colony in the La Jolla area, and we lived on Gonzales Street. It had rained and rained the night before, but on this particular day, on the 3rd, we had experienced a lot of rain. The water had crested in the river, or the creek, or the arroyo, more or less. And, you know, that arroyo, every time it rained, it used to go up a lot. The water level would go up. But this time, the water level kept rising and rising, and it was not going down at all. And my mother and father, Pedro and Victoria, they said, well, don't worry about it. The water level is going to go down after a while. From the time that we saw the water come up on this particular day on March 3rd, the water kept coming up. It was about past noon, almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the principal of the La Jolla Elementary School, his name was Chet Whitten, and he came up walking down every street, starting on Blue Gum Street, Tafoya Street, Gonzales Street, Vista Street, Simmons, and Cypress Street. And he was telling everybody and yelling as loud as he could to go and to higher ground. We were in very much big danger of imminent flood coming in, and everybody possibility of getting drowned. So our family started moving to the school, and finally our family got to the school, and we realized that our cousins were there. And my cousin Joe Venegas and his wife Teresa, they had a daughter named Pauline, Marcella, and Margaret. Margaret was 1.5 years old, and in the excitement as they got to the school, they realized that the car had stalled on La Jolla Road, and Margaret was in the back seat, and they forgot. When they got to the school, my cousin Joe, I remember saying, I gotta go back and get the baby. We left her in the back seat of the car. And that was really, really amazing how nowadays we talk about somebody leaving the children in the back seat of the car when it's real hot. Well, in this case, in 1938, they left their child in the back seat of the car, and possibly would have lost their life, because when we left the school, coming back to our home, the car was tilted over on its side, and sure enough, Margaret would have drowned there for sure. Most of the people stayed in the La Jolla Elementary School. As we got there, everybody that got designated to different places, right away they told us all the children have to get up and sit on top of the closed cabinets. The closed cabinets were surrounded the room, and they also had tables in the work tables in the rooms. All the adults were told that if the water came up higher, they would have to stand on the tabletops. And of course, the children, we were up there, and it was really a lot of fun. We were having a great time. As the hours went by, we realized that this was really getting serious, because the water was lapping the porch that was lined with the pipes, and they had a railing, and the water was lapping the top of the porch, and it was almost 4 to 5 feet high. And pretty soon, about maybe 6 o'clock, as it was starting to get dark, the water started coming into the classroom. So, wow, we were figured this is really getting serious. Everybody was really, really quiet. There was a lot of little chattering going on. People they were talking like, hey, this is going to be really, really dangerous. And sure enough, some people had brought candles. When the candles were lit, I don't know what time that was, but I am assuming right now, as I can remember, the water was about 2 feet high inside the classrooms, and when they lit those candles, what a feeling it was. And to see the water that had risen that much, it was amazing. And you could hear the roar of the creek, the little arroyo that was usually so dusty and dry. It was like a roaring train going through there. As time went by, it got later and later, and as we could see, we were up on top of the cabinets of the closed closets, and you could see everybody standing by that time. The water was already past the tabletops, and you could not see the tables no more, and the water was just dirty brown. I can remember it was not clean water, it was dirty brown, and it had like a lot of oil in the water. And this being now, I remember now, that they talked about that the oil wells in the Atwood area, there was a lot of oil tanks, and some of the oil tanks were tipped over, and so that's where the oil was coming from. Well, as night fell, came midnight, and you could hear the squeaks, the pounding, and the roar of the water. You could hear squeaks, crash, booms, and you figure, well, what is happening here? So all night long, believe it or not, I don't think anybody slept. And I look back now and I says to myself, how did we survive in there? You said, didn't anybody need to go to the bathroom? Well, evidently not, because I'll tell you what, we were up there and we didn't have to go to the bathroom. And usually when there's water, you have to go to the bathroom, but nobody went to the bathroom. So we stayed awake all night long, and at one time or another, before things really, really got bad, my grandmother, Longina, she started praying the rosary. In the morning when daylight came, wow, you should have seen all the people were really frightened As kids, we had gotten over this, having a lot of fun, but the seriousness and the danger that we were in was really, really something else.
More than 3,700 storm refugees in Los Angeles and Orange counties were quartered by relief agencies in theaters, schools, public halls, and campsites. 1,500 homes in Los Angeles were declared uninhabitable.
We walked up to the railings, and when we took a look towards the colony, the homes, and the noises that we had heard at nighttime, we realized that all these homes were just totally gone and destroyed. They were piled on Blue Gum Street, they were piled up against each other, and as morning went, the water was receding really, really fast by then. Everybody was really quiet. We could see through the windows, we could see the homes that were really damaged, and that was really terrible. And we realized then, my mother and dad realized that what we had gone through a major flood. As morning got later and later into the noontime era, I really don't know who said that we could go and leave, but they did tell the owners of two of the stores that were on La Jolla Road that they could go over there and see if they could salvage food. And sure enough, they made a food run, and they went to the two stores. And the owners took the parents that wanted to go with them. My dad was one of them. They went and they collected cold cuts, and they were not sliced, and they brought bread, canned goods, and they brought all this food, and they dispersed it among the classrooms, being there was 6 classrooms, and they dispersed all this food into the classrooms, and everybody had like free food, and we were having a great time because it was free food, wow, in your own school. After starting later in the day, about 3 o'clock, the water had receded down all the way almost to the arroyo. So they told parents, well, I'll tell you what, he says, you can go, and the people that had come back had already talked about some really bad scenes. So we started walking, our family started walking, and we started walking on Blue Gum Street, down La Jolla Road, and we saw the Venegas car that had driven over there, where they had forgotten their baby in the back seat. It was tilted over almost on its side, and if they had left the baby there any longer, for sure she would have drowned. Well, we started walking down the street past Tafoya Street, which is First Street on the barrio, and we were throwing sticks, kicking into the mud. There was puddles left from the water was left in these puddles, and we saw the street was just homes, and they were scattered just like checkers on a checkerboard. And gosh, you didn't believe it. So then we came to Gonzalez Street, and the same thing. Boy, oh boy, there was homes all over the street. You couldn't see to the end of the street. But when we got to Gonzalez Street and we saw our home, it was just a pile of debris. As some of these pictures that are in here will indicate, how could anybody have survived this flood? And our home was just pushed against the Venegas homes. They were our neighbors, and it was just terrible. Another thing that I want to talk about is our church. A little church that was on La Jolla Road, and it was named Virgen de Guadalupe Catholic Church. And when we were walking from our house on Gonzales Street, and we went up to La Jolla Road. We had to go past the church, and we saw the church with the doors wide open, and the mud was just pouring out of the church. And it was so sad to see that, because that was our church that we used to go to church every Sunday morning, and they tolled the bell, and it was so neat. But it was sad to see the mud just pouring out the front double doors that it had. As we came back into the La Jolla area on La Jolla Road, the city of Placentia sent trucks, and they were probably trucks that they used at the packing houses. And a lot of people were taken to the American Legion Hall on Chapman Avenue and Murray Street. They took us down there with nothing on our backs. We were all wet. And how we survived that night without not going to the bathroom, no food until the following day, the 4th of March, is beyond me. Well, when they took us to the trucks, they unloaded us, and they took us into the upper level. There was the dance floor and the American Legion, and down in the basement was the kitchen. So our family decided to go to the basement, probably because the kitchen was there. And they had cots, and they gave us blankets, and lots of blankets, and they gave us some dry clothes, and they tucked us in for that night of the 4th of March, and then on the morning of the 4th and the 5th, they took us to Valencia High School to take showers. After everybody's all cleaned up, they took us back to the American Legion. The same thing with the women. They took their bath, they gave them clothes, they took us back to the American Legion, and they gave us a nice meal, and they took us back to the tent city that the National Guard had said on approximately on the last street of the barrio, which was Cypress Street. And they had set up a tent city, and they had water tanks, portable bathrooms, portable kitchens, and it was really a lot of fun. They said that the National Guard set the tent city there, but I never saw any soldiers. I never saw anybody that looked like a soldier. But there was one tent where they had a lot of people working there. The American Red Cross, they were asking a lot of questions. They haven't lost any family members, how many people had lost what, and if we had any place to go. And my father was employed at the Santa Ana Ranch, at the Rancho Santa Ana Botanical Garden. The superintendent of the ranch came over and told my dad, he said, "Pete," he says, "we have a home for you. If you want to go over there and live there, that's fine, bring your family." So that's what happened to us.
Historians have long argued about the total number of dead in the 1938 flood. Initial newspaper reports stated that 58 had perished. But some of the dead and missing turned out to be alive. Both the Santa Ana Register and Anaheim Bulletin had reduced the number to 21 by the time searchers found the last victim, Ildefonso Agúndez, a month after the March 3rd flood. A 1942 United States Department of the Interior study bumped the number up to 34. No one will ever know the truth. Placentia resident Joe Aguirre remembers that many single male Mexican immigrants lived alongside the Santa Ana riverbanks, and they just disappeared. No one ever asked for them.
One of the major things that we had lost at the home was my sister Lupe. She was taking lessons in piano playing, and when we walked into that house, the piano player was flat, and it was just covered with mud. It was really, really sad for my sister. And the rest of the other thing we lost was photographs and valuable papers that my mother and dad had. But that was not important. It was more important that we survived the flood and we came back to the home after it was moved in place, and we enjoyed the life that we had in the Rancho Santa Ana, and we didn't come back until about 5 years later, and we came to our home, and it was all moved back into place thanks to the American Red Cross. They gave my mother and dad a check to pay for the moving and the furniture that they put inside the house, and thank God we survived the flood of 1938. Final thing, I thank God that all my brothers and sisters that survived the flood, they are still living. My oldest sister, Lupe, she's 85 years old. My brother Armando is 84. My sister Mary is in her 80s. And my brothers, my twin brother Leo and I are this year in 2007, we're 79 years old. And my younger sister was born at the Rancho Santa Ana after the flood, and we're a happy family. We're still all alive. 3 girls and 3 boys.
Eddie's story is of the long nights spent with his and other families on higher ground within the protection of the brick McFadden School building. Today, there's a simple plaque near the flagpole of Placentia's Melrose Elementary School, which was built on the site of the old McFadden School. This historical marker commemorates the Great Flood of 1938. The Placentia Library History Room is grateful to Eddie for his story. We mourn the loss of life, but celebrate the survivors and the community that came together to support them in a time of need. Our generation owes it to them to be wise enough so that such a disaster does not happen again. The Great Flood of 1938 led the federal government to build Prado Dam on the Santa Ana River near Corona. The 106-foot-tall dam was completed in 1941. To further protect the public, in 1986, Congress authorized the $1.6 billion Santa Ana River Mainstream Project, which involves everything from lining parts of the river to building the Seven Oaks Dam, now under construction near Redlands. More than $500 million has been spent by local, state, and federal agencies. But the project is not yet fully funded.